morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. You know, this is how we greet here on Living Truthfully, and welcome to episode 38 of the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen, we have hit 100,000 total downloads and listens since the inception of this podcast. This is a massive achievement for me. It's such validation, and I cannot thank you enough for listening and sharing this podcast. And yes, for all the feedback that you give me, the good, the bad, and sometimes the very ugly. All of it is welcome here. So thank you. Now, talking of feedback, I have not met a group of fiercely loyal listeners like you. This last few weeks, I've had lots of you asking what has happened to the podcast. Many of you wondering why I've been slow in recording new episodes. Well, nothing has happened to the podcast. You see, this podcast is named Living Truthfully. And so it is not just a show. This podcast is intended to be a reflection of my healing journey. And that healing journey is not a straight path. There's nothing wrong with the podcast. But there is something wrong with me. Let me explain. I've shared here in previous episodes how 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with severe depression. And the therapist I was seeing asked me to see a psychiatrist, and possibly get on some meds. I declined, and instead chose to work with her. And when I couldn't afford the therapy sessions anymore, I stayed home and found ways, or not, of fighting for myself. For 2 years or so, it didn't work. I didn't work much. I often did not leave the house, sometimes taking a shower at the end of the day. I would eat because I was starving, not because that's when I should be eating. And when my savings ran out, I sold my car. And when that money ran out, I slowly sank into debt, which made my depressed state worse. Last year, I decided to fight for myself. And I think I was making a last-ditch attempt at it. The fight for myself last year, in December, found me here at Vicissitudes recording episode 3 of my podcast. And with the selfless help of my friend and brother, we started recording weekly shows of what you now know as a podcast, Living Truthfully. This podcast is an incredible part of my healing journey, just as I know it has been for many of you out there. And thank you for walking with me through this journey. My journey, though, is not complete. And I do go through bad days and lapses, and days that I don't want to get out of bed or get out of the house. Recently, I've been experiencing more of these days. This podcast, amongst other projects I've been working on, has given me a lot of life, and sometimes so much pressure in equal measure. I love it so much, and it is core to the future of my work as I see it. As I do it, though, I have other things I do to put food on my table. I do communication consulting. I do team building. I do emceeing for events, and I do internal communication for companies. But when any of these things are not working, then I'm not good. When they're working, I'm really good. So you see, a few weeks ago, I had some jobs that I was working on, either cancelled or postponed. And it hit me hard. It hit me very hard. I'd put a lot of energy into these projects, and when the clients pulled out, I felt lost and alone and broken and rejected. I've been here before, but this time it felt different. Now, I felt like the punches hit me harder than they usually do, and I had no one to punch back to. Yes, I have supportive friends and understanding ones too, and my producer is at top of the list, thank you, Lee. And I have sacrificial ones too, who have held me through the dark times. I can talk about my life group, I can talk about my friend Nyawera in Iraq. I have friends who've helped me through, who've been accepting and giving. But even after that, I go to bed alone. and I wake up alone. And I can feel the weight of my choices on my shoulders every day. And it's hard. So there's nothing wrong with the podcast. The host is the one struggling with the weight. Pun intended. The weight of his life. No, I'm not okay. But I'm also not in a crisis. I'm in my healing journey. So for that reason, I've decided for the remainder of the year, I'll be, having honest discussions about where I am and some of the questions I have. I want to discuss rejection, both work and love. How do we deal with it? How do we see it as rejection even when it's not? I want to discuss dating after divorce. How do I put myself out there again? How do I trust myself not to screw it up again? Do I even deserve love? I want to discuss co-parenting. I wonder if I'm doing enough. I wonder if I've scarred my kids for life. How do I undo the effects of my divorce on them? I wonder if their podcast will start with, my parents split on our 7. I want to discuss money and managing debt and work. I want to discuss self-doubt and how to overcome it. I've shared here sometimes how I don't always feel so confident. Moses shared here about how he sabotages his own relationships. Maybe I've been sabotaging my own career. I want to discuss sex. Yes. Why is this thing such a big deal? Why does it carry so much power over us? Why are we men and women using each other to feel better for a moment and numb the pain? Is this my drug? Because it's definitely not alcohol. Talking of pain, I want to talk about emotions. I want to cry, but I don't know how to. Spoken about anger, and I haven't learned how to express it. How do I maintain integrity of feeling what I'm feeling without thinking I'm weak or out of control? I have many questions, and I'm inviting you to this journey with me. Some might be monologues like this, because guests can be hard to come by sometimes, and others will be conversations with friends, exploring any of the above topics or others. For now, thank you. Thank you for listening. And thank you for making 100 and 100,000 downloads. Thank you for being there.
Hey Amani, I just want to encourage you, man. This podcast is it. The levels at which you're very raw and you're digging deep and just accessing the inner you and accepting those things is very authentic. It's very true. It transcends. We can feel it from this other end. I really felt you on this first episode. I would encourage that even with the other episodes, you may just continue to be as raw as possible. It's very difficult to find raw and uncut content of this nature. I really connect with it, and I really encourage you to continue doing this. Good job. Good job. Asante.
Hi Amani, my name is Tim and I'm an avid listener to your podcast. What has stood out for me has been the pain bank, the deposits and withdrawals we make at subconscious level and the impact that has in our lives. Thank you so much for that insight and I can't wait to see where this leads.
Hi Amani, I was going to say salam alaikum because, I say that quite often. But in the afternoon yesterday, I sort of lay on the bed with my legs propped up and I listened to episode 4 and 5 of the podcast, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. I've been a therapist now for about 3 years, and I have noticed there is a gradual shift where men are a lot more receptive to seeking resources for mental health, which is great. But then to see it on a public platform, for me, it's just amazing. And then the second thing where I was like really excited about, and just listening to the quality of your work was just the production was just amazing. So yeah, and I'm like your number one fan.
Hey Amani, good stuff. Dude, I've been listening to all your podcasts, and I must tell you, I appreciate your vulnerability, because that's unique. On a side note, that makes you very, very attractive. But anyway, on a serious note, that's a very, very unusual space, especially for a Kenyan man. So kudos, man. Kudos to you. I do appreciate that you're stepping out and coming out and being truthful to yourself first before you can be truthful to the rest of the world. And I truly pray that you're touching many, 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 many men, because these are issues that have been affecting thousands. And what happens is that these many wounded men who got wounded sometimes as boys end up bleeding on the cheeks. And so hence, of course, the reason why we have a lot of broken marriages, broken homes, because we have all these people walking around with wounds which they haven't sorted, which they haven't healed. And I'm praying even there are women who are understanding, who are actually getting your message right, because then it's helping understand that we're dealing also with wounded men. And a lot of people don't even know that they deal with wounded men. But otherwise, I'm enjoying the podcast completely. Kudos.
Hi, Amani. Thanks for what you do. Keep doing it. I'm just really amazed. Your friends are very deep brothers. I think my concern is just us as women. Are we so brutal? Wow. Thanks anyway. Keep doing what you do.
When a man expresses emotion, let's try not to shut him down. Let's try not to minimize whatever emotion he's expressing.
Invalidate it.
Yes. If he's expressing love, allow him to express it. If he's expressing hurt and pain, allow him to do it. If he's expressing anger, allow him to do it. Of course, all in healthy ways. It's in that step that even he is able to grow as a person, and whoever you are next to him, whether it's a significant other or a friend, your relationship grows as a result of that safe space as well.
You've said something that I want people to remember.
Yeah.
Heal a boy,
Yes.
you make a man.
That's right.
And increasingly, there's been a lot of voice in terms of, the man is not doing enough. The man is not rising up to the occasion. The man is not doing so much. And if you just go back to research, you ask, what has the man been given? This is the opportunity.
Wow.
We can start shaping the conversation with our stories.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have hit 100,000 total downloads and listens since the inception of this podcast. If you've ever dreamt of doing anything, just start.